Recently, Canada's Minister of International Trade announced a new independent post, the Canadian Ombudsperson for Responsible Enterprise, created to investigate and review complaints related to human rights abuses arising from Canadian companies' activities abroad. Let's talk about this new independent accountability mechanism and what it means for Canadian business. The Canadian Ombudsperson for Responsible Enterprise, or CORE for short, is a new entity created by the Government of Canada, meant to strengthen Canada's approach to encouraging responsible business conduct and enhance corporate accountability among Canadian companies operating abroad, so that global businesses, governments, and civil society leaders, both in Canada and abroad, will increasingly recognize Canadians, and Canadian businesses in particular, as being partners of choice when they're looking for international business interests to trade or partner with. The role of the Ombudsperson position also provides a strengthened approach to addressing alleged human rights abuses arising from Canadian operations abroad. Initially, the focus will be on mining, oil and gas, and the garment sector, but this may expand to other sectors as the office evolves. The Ombudsperson will be able to undertake joint fact-finding and independent fact-finding on alleged human rights abuses. They'll be able to initiate reviews on suspected human rights abuses, even without the submission of a formal complaint. They will facilitate dialogue and problem-solving between the complainants and the companies, and make recommendations to parties involved in a complaint, as well as to the Canadian government. But I hear you say this is all very well, but is this more bark than bite? Will CORE have any teeth? In addition to the Ombudsperson's power to investigate allegations of human rights complaints, the Ombudsperson can also compel businesses to participate in these investigations and remedy processes. If companies don't cooperate in these processes in good faith, the Ombudsperson has the ability to recommend the denial or withdrawal of trade advocacy services available from the Trade Commissioner Services of Canada, and also to deny future financial support from the government's export credit agency, Export Development Canada, or EDC, either as an interim measure or as a final recommendation, which will also be made public. This will ensure that the Ombudsman has the necessary leverage to encourage companies to meaningfully participate in these processes. So what does all this mean for Canadian businesses with operations abroad? In general, this is a positive development for Canadian companies, as it'll help them to send the message to their employees, their partners, in their supply chain and elsewhere, that Canadian businesses are serious about social responsibility. It'll also provide them with an additional mechanism in which to help resolve complex disputes by involving the Ombudsperson as an independent authority to help build trust between companies and complainants when this trust breaks down, and to serve as an honest broker to help establish the particular facts involved in a dispute and help find resolutions to problems between the complainant and the businesses involved. The launch of the Canadian Ombudsperson for Responsible Enterprise also serves as a useful reminder for Canadian businesses to make sure they have their own operational grievance mechanisms in place. As the UN Guiding Principles make clear, in order to make it possible for grievances to be addressed early and remediated directly, businesses should establish their own effective operational level grievance mechanisms. There's widespread agreement that in most cases, dealing with grievances at the local or operational level is usually the most effective and most economical option before these disputes balloon into much bigger issues involving strikes, road blockages, work disruptions, etc. There are situations, however, where local mechanisms are simply absent, ineffective, or fail to resolve the grievances in an appropriate way. In these instances, grievances can now be escalated to third-party mechanisms, such as the Canadian Ombudsman for Responsible Enterprise. So, in short, the new Ombudsperson should help strengthen Canada's approach to encouraging responsible business conduct abroad and enhance greater corporate accountability among Canadian businesses. It should be seen, however, by businesses and stakeholders as a last resort, as a backstop only. It doesn't replace existing obligations that Canadian businesses have to take appropriate steps to respect human rights by adopting policies, carrying out due diligence before grievances actually evolve, and taking active steps to mitigate potential negative human rights impacts when they do. including the establishment of their own operational level grievance mechanism to address any concerns throughout their operations and throughout their supply chains. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our video channel, where you can get further tips on sustainability issues and topics like these.